So we're going to close the day off with our final speaker. I met her about a month ago, so she's fantastic. She is a woman of many traits. Her name is Jasmine Daya. She owns her personal injury law firm. She's a fiction novel writer. She's wrote her own cookbook. She's been on City TV. She owns her own podcast. So if we can all give her a round of applause and welcome her for the next show.
Thank you so much for that introduction. Good afternoon, ladies and couple of gentlemen. I am your last speaker, so I hope you're ready. The organizers of this event, and in particular Shade, reached out to me to speak to you about work-life balance. And one of my rules is to never say no. But the issue is that I don't believe in work-life balance. I actually... Sorry, this might be making the organizers a bit nervous right now, but we're going to get somewhere. I believe that work-life balance has become a catchphrase, a sexy concept, and I suggest to you that it actually does not, in fact, exist. And you can now breathe a sigh of relief that whatever you've been searching for or been told that people have, no one really has work-life balance. Working women do not work 5 hours a day so that they can run errands for 3 hours, socialize with friends for 2 hours, thereby achieving work-life balance of equal part work and equal part life. I used to imagine these imaginary scales of work-life balance when people would talk to me about it. And the first time this concept came to me was when I was in law school. And these impeccably dressed lawyers came to woo us and tell us about how great their firm was. And, you know, I looked at them and I was sold. They looked great, they sounded great, they were intelligent, and they told me they had work-life balance. So that seemed great. Fast forward to present day, and I now have 3 children. And you heard some of the projects that I have going on. It's busy. And on top of that, my oldest kid is with my first husband, so that, if any of you have exes, adds another layer of complexity of balancing that act. So with my children, they have their activities, and for those of you in the room that have children, you know what those activities are. There's coding, there's karate, there's track and field, there's everything. And on top of that, there's the birthday parties. And while this is great because they're kept busy for a few hours, the day of the birthday comes and I'm thinking to myself, okay, was it the Evite? Do I have to buy a gift? Where's the Michaels coupon? Or was it the Eco-Age invite where I paid and so I've already taken care of the gift? It's just another level of something I have to deal with. We are on top of that as parents these days, helicopter parents, including myself, and I'm not going to change it. It's the way I am. It's the way we all are these days. And we want our kids in everything, and we want to do everything for them because, God forbid, they don't have something, then something's going to go wrong, right? So, you know, we do everything. I do everything for my children. Then there's my home, and I have a home. You know, I own my home, and whether you own or you rent, you have to take care of the home. I think there's just a little bit more when you own it. So this past winter, which I think just ended day before yesterday, I had a furnace issue, and my furnace was sort of dying a slow death last winter, but I pushed it off because it was expensive. You know, I was like, it's okay, we can make it. And then summer came, and I didn't have to deal with it, but unfortunately winter came again, and this time I had to deal with it. My husband turns to me and he says, okay, there is something leaking out of the furnace. I really think we need to change the furnace. And I said, okay, so call someone. And he looks at me and he says, okay, sure, who should I call? And in my mind, I'm like, if I knew who to call, I would have done it myself. But for some reason, and I'm not saying all husbands are like this, but my husband always seems to think when things happen in the house that I need to deal with it. And it's not that I mind dealing with it. I want to deal with it. It's just that I have all this other stuff going on. And so we've talked about my children. We've talked about my home. So let's turn to my work. I could probably spend way too long talking about that. But in short, my primary occupation is that of a litigation lawyer. And I specialize in the area of personal injury. And because you all live in Toronto, I'm sure that you've seen all the massive billboards and bus ads that are promoting personal injury. It is a very crowded marketplace. So not only am I in litigation, which is perhaps the most stressful and fast-paced area of law, but I am also in personal injury, which is the most crowded and competitive area within litigation. This means that I am always stressed out. But I wouldn't change anything because I love it. So I just complain to anyone that will listen to me, like all of you today. So now we've talked about my children, my home, my work, but I actually also really love doing things for me. I love hanging out with my girlfriends. I love going to new restaurants. I love Miami to satisfy my obsession with palm trees and sunshine. I love doing things just for me. So I'm doing all of this, and now to go back to my theory of work-life balance and how I don't believe it exists, I believe that what exists is just simply life. Doing everything you want to do in life and making it work, and forget about, an equal balance, but throwing it all in there to achieve your maximum potential while doing everything you want to do, to live life without regret, which is what I try to do. And I'm going to tell you how I achieve it. And I'm not suggesting for a second that you should all live your life like this. All of you have to find what works for you. But what I'm going to do is tell you what I have found works for me. And if you learn from this, fabulous. And if you never want to listen to this again, that's fine too. But this is what works for me. So first of all, a positive perspective. I literally think that I walk through life wearing rose-colored glasses, but not in the 2007-2008 market crash type. Okay, looking through a positive lens, looking at everything from a positive angle. For example, that furnace issue. Okay, it is not fun trying to figure out from all these people who's scamming me and who is not, and then being there during business hours because I don't want to pay a premium for after-hour service call. None of that is fun and easy, but having a warm house is great. It's also necessary for survival, and I think it will be good for resale. That's the positive. Another example is, when I go to watch my kids at school plays, there was some times when they were much younger that, I would rush in. I was probably the last mom to come in, and I was in my pantsuit and probably looking a lot more disheveled than some of the other moms who looked casual chic right off the runway, and they all seemed to know each other. And I felt sort of left out because some of those moms didn't all work. And I felt down about that. But then I look at the positive, and in recent years, I've put all that aside, and I'm like, but I was there. I showed up. Not only do I get to work, but I also saw my kid. I welled up in tears. I took all the pictures, and I'm so proud of them. And that's the positive perspective. Number 2, pursue your passion. So for me, I have a cookbook series, and this is something I started a few years ago, and it is a project with my mom. So we have Indian cookbooks, and the first one that we published is called Indian Appetizers and Chutneys. The next few are rolling out shortly. But this was a big project, and I'll tell you how I got the idea later, but it gives me a lot of excitement and pleasure to do something outside of my day-to-day. And when I embarked upon this, and I actually sent this book to the publisher, my husband said, well, what's your end game? And I looked at him, and I was so irritated. I'm still irritated when I think about that moment. But I'm like, what do you mean, what is my end game? There is no end game. That's the point. I'm just doing something because it makes me feel good. It's given me time with my mom that I never would have had to test all these recipes. And it's something that I enjoy in the sense of accomplishment. And in fact, I have found that it makes me a better lawyer because when I go to the office, I feel that I have a new perspective because I've switched off and been able to let my mind breathe a bit. And I'm happier. Number 3, my schedule. Okay. I'm a little insane with the schedule. So I meal plan for the week because the worst thing you want to do is, or I'm sure you've done it because I've done it, you go home and you're like, I have no idea what to cook. And then, it's this horrible chore to put together a meal. Whereas on the weekend, I now come up with a menu, and sometimes I ask my kids for their input, and they're very excited to eat the meals because they've participated in that whole routine. I also have a color-coded calendar that has everything in it. My appointments, the kids' activities, the sleepovers, the dentist appointment, everything, every court proceeding, like everything is in there so that nothing is forgotten. And I also have a rule that if it's not in my calendar, it doesn't exist. So I live by that. Number 4 is my to-do list. Every morning I make a to-do list because the worst part of not having a to-do list is wasting time trying to figure out what you have to do. You waste so much time trying to figure out what you have to do because you don't know what you have to do because you didn't write it down. Number 5 goes a little bit with what Jace was saying, is a healthy lifestyle. So we took a health issue that I had a few years ago to have a trainer, lifestyle expert?
Lifestyle is, whatever they want to call it.
Okay. So I had a health issue. I had a blood clot, and Shane has heard this story before, but it was, the only thing I could do for myself besides blood thinners, which I was on, was exercise. And I didn't want to exercise by myself because I thought I could die. So I thought, okay, I'll get a trainer. And I had all this time that I would never get a trainer because I don't need someone to tell me what to do. And I know how to do that. I'm not wasting money on that. And getting that trainer has probably been one of the best things I did for myself because I've become a really lazy worker-outer, like 5 minutes on the treadmill every once in a while so I could look okay. It wasn't about health, and I now have this way to feel good about myself. I totally unload on this boy, this poor boy, but he gives me really good advice. So it's been great to live a healthy lifestyle, and I also get 7 hours sleep a night. I saw that. 7 hours sleep a night, except once a week when I go out with my girlfriends. No, 7 hours. I'll nap. So number 6, surround myself with good people. Positive energy. We don't need negativity. I find that when there's negative people in my life, it makes me negative. And so at my firm, we have a policy of check the attitude at the door. They know that. We are a family, my firm family. I've said to people often that we are at the firm together. We work together. You work with your colleagues more than you see your family during awake hours. So shouldn't we all get along? Number 7, I never say no, which I told you earlier, because if an opportunity presents itself and you say no, once lost, you're never going to have the opportunity again. If someone's invited you somewhere and you didn't go, you're not getting another invitation. That's how I feel, at least. Because you said no the last time, so why should they invite you again? I mean, not in every context, but I personally just don't want to miss an opportunity. Number 8, family time. So for me, I leave the office at 5:30 so I can have dinner with my family because it's really important. And leaving the office at 5:30 and then starting to work again at 7:30 is really painful. But I have made it a priority in my life, and I'm not saying that everyone should do this, but what is important is to recognize the importance of family. Because I have seen with other lawyers that are older than me become very miserable people, divorced, unhappy. Not that, you have to have a happy marriage to be happy, but it just alone. They're alone, and they've distanced themselves. And when you are feeling down, no one is going to be there for you if you aren't good to those that actually care about you. And when you have great things happen in your life, who is there to celebrate those accomplishments? The only people that really care about you are your family. And so I cherish that 5:30 to 7:30 time with my family, and my meetings happen after. Number 9, this is one of my favorites and a big secret: do nothing. So once a week on the weekend for 1 to 2 hours, I do absolutely nothing. And by absolutely nothing, I mean I might take a nap, which is a total luxury to do. I may sit on the patio and sip on a cup of tea or a glass of wine if I feel like it. I might actually watch a movie in the day, which is also very exciting for me at this point. And doing nothing, it sounds like, what do you mean? What are you talking about? We could do nothing all the time. My life is scheduled from 6:30 a.m. to 11:30 p.m. every day. When I do nothing, it makes me feel good. So I read a few weeks ago on LinkedIn, so before I get out of bed in the morning, I sort of cruise through all my email and my social media and make sure everything's okay. And on LinkedIn, a few weeks ago, I don't know if you have LinkedIn, you read the Daily Rundown. So in the Daily Rundown, I'm going to read to you what I read, and I was very excited. And I actually started hitting my husband, who was sleeping beside me. I'm like, oh my God, I was onto something here. So it says, busyness has become an unhealthy status symbol, argues a column in the New York Times, and it's affecting our well-being in profound ways. One piece of advice is to ignore the pressure to do something, anything, and follow what the Dutch call niksen. Essentially, niksen is the art of doing nothing. Not meditating, not eating healthy, nor being actively mindful, but just being idle. The upside of conscious boredom is that it creates creativity and increases focus. So I was onto something. Number 10. Some say, and in this company you say, work hard, play hard. I believe work hard, play harder. So, with everything going on in our lives, you have to have fun. I mean, what's the point of it all if you're not enjoying life? And for me, those things, I've told you some of the things I love to do. There's the Raptors. I'm sure you all watched. We're all going to watch on Monday, and we're going to make it a priority. It doesn't matter how late we have to stay up, and we're going to feel good when they win.
That's right.
Hanging out with my girlfriends, laughing about everything and nothing feels so good. Binging on Suits or Billions, love it. Girl strips. That's all I have to say. You all know what I'm talking about. So fun. But those are the things that we have to sort of squeeze in to really enjoy it all. So I want to leave you with a final story. One day, this was a few years ago and changed a lot of stuff for me in life, but a few years ago I was with a good friend of mine at a cocktail event. It was a work event, but it was a cocktail event, and I was really stressed out. I rushed out of the office to get to this event, and this friend of mine, as usual, was on his phone the entire conversation, but I've just become used to it. And I was unloading on him about the stress I was going through and this case I was working on and my neck pain, the never-ending neck pain from doing this all day. And I said to him, I go, I wish I could just cook. I wish I could just test my recipes on my friends, host dinner parties. They could give me feedback on whether these were great recipes or not, because I love cooking. So this boy looks up from his phone and he goes, so why don't you? I was enraged. Had he not listened to everything I was working on? I was so upset, and I thought he wasn't listening to anything clearly. How could he? I went back to the office a week later. Nothing had gotten better. In fact, things had gotten worse. Now my neck pain, I don't know if you've experienced this, but it was shooting up to my head and causing that headache pain, and it was a bad scene. But I remember the moment when I looked up from the file I was looking at and thought to myself, why don't I? Nobody has ever said that you only have to do one thing in life, that you can only be one thing in life. And from that moment on, I changed my entire perspective. And from that came JD in the Kitchen and the podcast and the Chicklet and all that stuff. And I have not told that boy because I don't want him to get a big head. He's not here today. But really, I had this pivotal moment in my life when I realized, and I would like to share with all of you, that you don't need to be one thing or do one thing. You can do everything. And in fact, isn't that the true balance of life? To be able to work hard, crush your goals, and enjoy life? So I urge you all to do just that, because the sky is the limit. Thank you.